What's happening, everyone? And on today's episode of In the Conversation, I'm joined by none other than my dear, glorious friend, Ade Oladipo. Make sure that you subscribe to his YouTube channel. You will find the link in the description below. Today we are going to discuss Everton. Ade, it's a football club in disarray.
Doesn't make sense. Honestly, it doesn't make sense. You know when I say that, yeah, you go back a year and a half, Carlo Ancelotti at the club, top manager. We're seeing that now with Real Madrid. So big manager comes in. They're already spending big money on the Farhad Mashiri, big money. And then they get James Rodriguez, they get Alan, and they get Doucouré, who I thought at the time was one of the signings of the season. Dominic Calvert-Lewin was starting to really become this second striker behind Harry Kane. You had Richarlison, and you're thinking, I'm not joking, you're thinking, wait a minute, Everton could push top 6, top 4. Again, you're talking about a top manager coming in and big players. James Rodriguez was coming from Bayern Munich. You know what I mean? So you're thinking a year and a half later, Everton stayed up by, I'm going to use your term here, a Rizzler paper.
I just can't see where it's
going to go. How has that happened?
I honestly,
in a year and a half?
I honestly don't know. I mean, I think the club has been run really poorly. I think the appointment of Benitez, whatever you think of Benitez, and everybody knows my feelings on him, but whatever you think of him and whatever kind of manager that you think he is, he's a terrible manager for Everton.
Yeah, I'll give you that. I don't think it's a terrible manager.
He's a terrible manager
for Everton. Okay.
Therefore, that was a bad appointment. They then brought in Lampard, and he did what he was supposed to do, but felt very lucky by the end, didn't it? At half-time, in that Crystal Palace game, I thought they were gone.
They were lucky because the wheels came off Burnley. I remember when Burnley sort of sacked Sean Dyche, and we thought, okay, Everton are safe because they got rid of Sean Dyche. But then Mike Jackson somehow started to get results, and then Burnley kind of messed up in their last few. But sort of going back to the Frank Lampard appointment, and sort of, he must have been told what's going on behind the scenes with this Everton Football Club. And I mean by the fact, okay, we've got to sell players. We've got to hit this financial fair play thing, and if we don't, we're in trouble. He must have known.
I don't necessarily think that's true because there's a lot of moving parts with regard to Everton's financial troubles. Like, the reason that they're in this hole is partly because of the sanctioning from the US of Alisher Usmanov. Like, that's going to have a detrimental impact to anything that Mashiri wants to do. So I don't necessarily think that he would have thought that it would be this perilous. Surely, I'll tell you what he would have never thought he would have had to deal with. Tottenham having genuine interest in Anthony Gordon. He would have never, ever envisaged a situation where he has to fight off any competition for Anthony Gordon. You know, Richarlison, could he leave Everton this time last year? Would you have thought it were possible?
Maybe.
Probably.
Big aspirations.
Could Yerry Mina leave? I mean, probably. Could various players leave? But Anthony Gordon, no way would you think that could happen. Whereas now we're looking at it and you think, if Tottenham are genuine in their pursuit and hope of signing Anthony Gordon, I kind of feel like they'll get him.
Possibly. It's funny, I'm going to name drop now, speaking to Tony Bellew yesterday about it, and obviously, look, big Evertonian. He's like, he's never going to go because he's an Evertonian. I was like, Tony, that's not how it works. These players will up and leave if they see that the club's not going in the right direction. And Everton's not going in the right direction. Look, this is a club that, under Farhad Mashiri in the last several seasons, has spent £600 million plus. Now you look at the squad,
over £500 million.
Over £500 million. Now if you look at the squad, where's the £500 million? And this is no disrespect. Like, Richarlison will go for 50 million. Yeah. Talks of Anthony Gordon going for around 35. Where's the rest? Like, where's the assets there to sell to even justify that money?
It's because they spent so badly. It's the money that they spent on Iwobi and Walcott, and it's that, isn't it? It's the amount of poor business that they've done, the running of the club, and this is the issue. Whatever you think of Everton, whatever you think of the manager, whoever it is, whether it's Benitez or Lampard, it's the running of the club. Like, what does Bill Kenwright do there? Genuinely, does anyone know what his role at the club is? I don't think anybody does.
It's an ambassador role now, sure, isn't it? He'd probably be sort of executive director, but he's done nothing.
I don't think he has any real role at the club, and yet you see him there all the time. I think that the way that they spend money is so weird. I mean, they used to have a system where they would often produce young, good players. And aside from Anthony Gordon, who, you know, as things stand, is a rough diamond. You know, there needs to be more end product. There needs to be more goals from him. There needs to be a lot more. But that will come, I'm sure. But aside from Gordon, what is that? I mean, I suppose Davis.
Davis.
But that was a long time ago.
Ben Godfrey, maybe. He looks decent.
But they used to produce, man. They were a producer. When you think 100%. How fertile that region of the country is. In terms of like the most fertile region of the country to produce top tier footballers.
It's that area.
That area, London, North East. That's where your footballers come from. So realistically, Everton should be producing the way that Liverpool have produced over recent years, and they're nowhere near it.
Nowhere near it. You know, I've got some of their signings up, yeah, and this, I guess you can do this with every single club, right? You go through it, but there's players that I can't even remember played for Everton, big money. David Klaassen,
Yeah,
24 million.
yeah.
What? When did you know? Obviously, you've got Morgan Schneidland from Manchester United.
Schneidlin
20
was
million.
there, wasn't he?
You almost
Yeah.
forget this. You forget this that all these players came. Ena Valencia, 14.5 million. Like, just players that like Yannick Bolasie,
Yeah.
25 million. Do you know what I mean? All
It's a
these
lot of
players that
money.
have come in. This is a lot
Yeah.
of money, and these players have come in and then done nothing.
Yeah.
And I guess that's the problem for Everton. They've had like a history of that kind of signings, and it's not worked. And even the players that Frank Lampard bought in, and look, this isn't a dig at Frank. He bought Donny van der Beek. I know it was on loan, but it was awful.
Dele Alli.
Dele Alli. Not on loan, on a permanent. Dele Alli. Awful.
Do you know, with the Dele Alli signing is the one that makes life, unless he comes good, but it's the one that makes it very difficult to defend Frank Lampard. You know, in terms of his player recruitment and everything that goes with that, like a huge reason as to why he lost his job at Chelsea was player recruitment. Apparently the board, and this kind of brings it full circle back to Everton, but apparently when he had a conversation with the board when he was in the going into the second season at Chelsea, and they asked him who, transfers, what do you want? Apparently he went, Tarkowski. Like, Tarkowski is the player that Chelsea desperately need. And that was the moment that Granit Xhaka and whoever else in the board went, he don't get it. He's not getting it. You know, that Chelsea don't. I like him, but it's not a Chelsea signing.
Tarkowski from Burnley.
Yeah.
And the scary thing for me with Frank, and obviously I know Frank's your hero, etc. But the scary thing for me with Frank is you look at the Chelsea signings that he made. Ben Chilwell will come good. The rest?
But I wonder how many of them were
Kai
his.
Havertz?
But I don't believe that Frank Lampard
Havertz?
wanted.
You don't think?
I don't.
But he would have wanted Chilwell.
He would have wanted Chilwell.
Yeah,
Chilwell is definitely a Lampard signing. But I don't believe that Kai Havertz is a Lampard signing. It's not the way that he sees the game being played. He didn't really know what to do with him. And I don't know the answer to this question, but how much Bundesliga does Frank Lampard realistically watch? I think that's a club recruitment. You know, the way the club signed Lukaku? I think it's one of those. But his recruitment at Everton, look, Tarkowski was always going to get because he's always wanted him. The Ali one is so bad. Unless it comes good. He needs it to come good. But in terms
I
of...
don't know how he survives, sorry to cut across you, if he loses Richarlison, which is very, very likely to happen, Spurs or who else, Richarlison could go abroad, and Dominic Calvert-Lewin to Newcastle, which again is being rumoured.
I think he'll...
You've lost all your goals.
No, see, I think that he will acquiesce to those players leaving. Yeah. I think he will look at who Everton are at the moment, the aspirations of Everton, and the fact that Richarlison starts for Brazil makes it very difficult to keep hold of him. I think he'll accept that. Yeah. From a club perspective, I think he'll look at the board, the way the board operate, and will say, no drama, Richarlison has to go. Okay. It's a bit like when Eden Hazard left Chelsea, or when
Anyway, Suarez
to Bar. Yeah, it's a little bit like that. So I think that he swallows that one. Calvert-Lewin, maybe not Newcastle, but Calvert-Lewin leaving, I think he can probably make his peace with as well. It's Gordon for me. I think if Gordon is sold...
If a young player like that goes... I remember when Raheem Sterling, obviously look, he didn't come from our youth ranks at Liverpool, but when a young player at that age, and I think Gordon's 21, I think Raheem Sterling was around the same age, decides, I want bigger, it makes you feel sick in your stomach. Like, you know, when an experienced player does it, 26, 27, fine. When a young player who's only had a couple of games says, no, I want out, then you start to worry. My thing with Frank though is like how big of attraction are Everton? Like we're hearing players like Harry Winks.
But this is the problem. This is the problem.
What can he get in to replace those?
Dele Alli coming in, Donny van der Beek coming in. These are like part of Lampard's recruitment. Like Harry Winks. I kind of get Harry Winks. I like him more than most people. I do a bit. I like that sort of player.
I don't think Harry Winks would stand out in the Championship. I don't think they think, oh, hello, he's got to go to the Prem. Not like we see a Mitrovic for Fulham. I don't think Harry Winks would put on a jersey for Sunderland in the Championship and you'd be like, whoa, he's got to be in the Prem.
Winks can do a good job. I've seen him play very well. I thought he was very good against Liverpool last season, things like that. I think he can be a good player, and I think you kind of need a Winks. I think you need someone better than Winks, but you do need a Winks. But if you think about Everton's midfield, they've lost Delph, haven't they? Yeah. They've lost Van der Beek, who's gone back.
Van der Beek's gone back.
I can see why Harry Winks is being sought after by Everton, because also, whatever we think of him, whatever you think of him...
He's a neat ball player, isn't he?
Yes. And he's not good enough for Tottenham, but he's definitely good enough for Everton. It's about the best player that Everton can get.
That's quite damning.
Yes, I agree.
Again, when I said they got Allen from Napoli, they got Doucouré, I know it's from Watford, but everyone was looking at Doucouré, and they got James Rodriguez from Bayern Munich. And now, a year and a half later, we're saying the best players they can get are Harry Winks, who...
But Harry Winks is an England international.
Oh, he's not, and don't do that.
He definitely is.
He played for England.
Yeah, okay.
Are we doing that?
No, but that it's like being a president, isn't it? It's like you're a president until you die. He's an England international.
Yeah, you're a president. Yeah.
Like he's an England international. He has been an England international. He's not getting in the Tottenham team, but when you look at that Tottenham midfield, it's a similar conversation to what we've had about various Man City players. Not getting into Tottenham's midfield doesn't mean you aren't a good player. Harry Winks might not be a good player, but the fact that he's not getting into Tottenham and maybe Conte doesn't fancy him, I don't necessarily think it's quite as damning as it sounds. So I think he could do a job. And if you think, do you know what the Winks signing becomes? It becomes... We debate whether it's a good signing, but the way that we have to debate it is with this question in mind. What's Everton's ambition next season? Because if it's to stay in the Premier League, I think Winks is a good signing.
We spoke to that guy from Toffee Blues podcast, and what did he say? He said he'll take right now anywhere between 10th and 14th. 10th and 14th is what he said.
But what's Lampard's ambition? Like the fan's going to have...
Realistic. Yeah. Lampard won't say this publicly, staying up. He would never say it publicly because Everton fans will go mad. But staying up has to be. It just has to be. Again, you're losing your best player who kept them up last season. Potentially losing your best young player in Anthony Gordon. And say what you want about Dominic Calvert-Lewin and the way he's fallen off. You're losing your number one striker.
Yes.
You're losing. So you've literally lost everything going forward.
Yes.
And right now we're not hearing them being linked with any strikers either. So, mate, it has to be just staying in the league.
The thing is with Winks, the only reason that Tottenham are ready to let him go is because they sold Basuma. So obviously Basuma's a better player than Winks, but that doesn't mean that Winks isn't a good player.
You say that. And look, we know a lot of Spurs fans. I haven't heard one Spurs fan say, "Oh, we've got to keep him." I've not heard it yet. I've not heard one. And bear in mind, this is a team that are going to be in Europe next season, so they're going to need squad depth. And Conte's trying to build a bigger squad. No one is going to cry when Winks leaves Spurs.
No,
nobody. So I'm not convinced as to what you're saying here. I don't see.
I'm just trying to think of what Everton's aspirations are. And if they're trying to stay up, I disagree with you about Winks, where he ranks in terms of, is he a Championship player or is he... I think he's definitely a Premier League player. I believe that he's definitely a Premier League player. And therefore, if Lampard is only trying to survive at Everton, if survival is the MO for them this season, I don't think it's a bad sign. I think they need more.
By the way, we know when you said if Lampard's trying to survive, I think that statement's correct.
What, his own job, you mean?
His own job. Him as a manager is trying to survive here. I think he's taken on a job that maybe on the onset, he didn't realise was as big as it is. They're struggling financially. They're trying to build a new stadium, which is crazy going through what they're going through right now with their biggest cash injection, not being able to release any cash. So I don't know what they do as a club. Honestly, I don't. I'm surprised that there's not even been murmurings about Pickford going, if I'm honest with you. I'm very surprised because I think Pickford's had these issues sometimes.
He's a good keeper.
He's a good keeper for England. I think
he's just a good Premier League keeper, isn't he?
Yeah, and he might be a bit...
bit rash, bit wild, but good.
Some people might say he might be too good for Everton. Some people might say that.
Well, he's definitely too good for them if they go down. And he's definitely too good for them if they're in a relegation fight. But I just can't believe how it's changed for Everton. It's a shame, really. I like Everton for what they are. They're like a good old club.
Love it.
I like the old Z cars and all that. Yeah.
Yeah, I like everything about them. I like their anthems. I like the songs they sing. I like the fact they get behind their players. I like
great old ground, great away end.
You speak to opposing sort of fans and opposing players, they hate going there.
Yeah.
Because the crowd are right on you when you take corners.
It's a brilliant.
It's perfect.
Also, it rocks, doesn't it? Like you saw when they beat Chelsea towards the end of last season, Richarlison scored, basically kept them up.
It goes crazy.
It goes crazy, yeah. You know, they had that. They were all on the pitch, weren't they, after Palace?
Yeah,
like,
broke the crossbar.
It rocks Goodison.
The problem for them, and look, they've tried so many different things, and you're right. You think at the start of the show you mentioned it. It's a mismanagement from the top. They've tried every different manager you can try. In terms of experience, I know Rafa wasn't a good one, but they tried Rafa, Ronald Koeman, Sam Allardyce.
Yeah.
They've
tried
done
it all, haven't they?
They've tried the hipsters.
wasn't
Marco
Koeman there?
Silva, and Koeman was there. Yeah, it's Marco Silva who's doing a good job at Fulham now. Roberto Martinez. They've tried a bit of mixed of everything.
And now they're trying something else with Lampard.
Now they're trying something
from
else.
Ancelotti via Benitez to Lampard.
Like what's your
There's
what's
no
your aim?
overall strategy, is there?
None.
There's no overall strategy.
None.
It's
So this is the style of manager. Okay, who are these style of managers?
Yeah.
None.
And one manager will come in and buy players to play a particular system. That manager gets sacked. You've got a load of players that don't want to play that system. And now the new manager has to buy in a load of players to play his system, and then he gets sacked, and the same thing is rinsed and
But the
repeat.
difference between Lampard and those old managers is the old managers had money to spend and get rid of all the stuff that they didn't want. Lampard has no money to spend. I want Everton fans to understand that. I think some Everton fans, and I'm not trying to say they don't know their football club, you can't spend money unless you sell because of financial fair play.
Yeah.
They're literally on the cusp of being sanctioned.
How damaging?
They can't spend money.
How damaging for Lampard's future aspirations is a relegation with Everton?
Big.
How significant is it for Lampard's future aspirations if he keeps them up? Does he get say he keeps them up?
Does he get a better job?
Yeah, that's what I'm thinking.
No. No.
So he needs to actually make a success of it at Everton.
Yeah, he needs a long run at it as well. We need to see him in a job, almost like a Hasenhüttl, for like 4 or 5 seasons at the same club.
Yes.
And let's see if you can.
Yeah, and then in 4 seasons, Everton are 8th and playing in Europe. Then he's looking for his next.
Yeah, it'll be like, these are my players.
Yeah, my system.
Wrong or right, this is my system. Because we still don't really know. I mean, you've obviously watched Chelsea under him a lot more than I have. I still don't kind of know what kind of football he's trying to play. I still don't know. You know, like Arteta, we kind of understand he wants the ball to get to the wide and cross it in. That was his thing. And, you know, Jurgen Klopp's all about press and, you know, sort of.
Yeah, we'll learn about Lampard this year.
I've no idea what Lampard's
I know what Lampard's ethics are in a team. I know what he wants from a team, but I do also understand what you mean. We need to see it consistently, his players, for a prolonged period of time with success. It needs to work.
Does he get relegated? Do Everton get relegated?
The question is, are there 3 worse teams in the league than Everton? And I believe that there are.
Really?
Well, I believe Bournemouth have gone. I'm putting
Bournemouth
in the Championship now.
Bournemouth have spent no money. They're gone.
So Bournemouth are gone. I also think Leeds could go.
Well, yeah, they've lost Calvin Phillips.
Jesse Marsh, I don't rate.
They're going to lose Rafinha.
Yeah.
Patrick Bamford's not going to be fit to start. They're
So I think Leeds go. I think
Bournemouth go.
What about Fulham?
Nah, Fulham have spent big money as well. I think Fulham will be all right. I think Mitrovic will get in the goals, and they've signed a couple of defenders. Who else? Forest came up.
Brentford, second season?
If they keep Christian Eriksen, they stay up. If they lose him, they could go down. Forest will go.
Everton are going to stay up.
As much as you think Forest are a big club, which they are, Forest will
Everton
go.
are up. Everton are up, but Forest are also up. I can't have Forest going. We've just got them back.
Rory has this thing, by the way, where he only wants big clubs in the Premier League.
Clubs.
So Rory wants Brentford gone. Yeah. He celebrated when Burnley got relegated. Gone. He wants Norwich out, never to be seen again. Watford can do
Fulham.
one.
Bournemouth, get rid of them all. I want Sheffield Wednesday up. I want Leeds United up.
Sunderland
up. Yeah, get them up. Make sure Everton stay as well. This has been interesting. I've thoroughly enjoyed this chat, but I am worried about Everton and I am worried about Frank Lampard's
as you should
future.
You should be.
Thank you to everybody for watching this video. Really appreciate your support. Please let us know your thoughts in the comments below. And remember, subscribe to Adi Oladipo's channel. The link is in the description below. We will see you all on the next episode of In the Conversation.